Hello, everybody. Sorry I couldn't make it to class today, but let's still talk about photosynthesis. You see in front of you, this is a microscope image of a plant called Elodia. Those brick-like structures are the cells of the plant, and in the center, all those little tiny green spots, those are chloroplasts full with chlorophyll. We're going to continue talking about those as we move forward. Make certain that you have your worksheet and that you're filling it out as we go along. Please stop the video or pause it when you need to in order to fill in the answers on your worksheet. So the objectives for today's lesson are for you to be able to explain the role of light and pigments in photosynthesis, to explain the role of electron carrier molecules in photosynthesis, and state the overall equation for photosynthesis. So if you look at the image below, you'll see that there's a bar of white light passing through a prism. And one side the light is white, and on the other side we see a whole rainbow of color. Well, sunlight is a white light. It contains all the different wavelengths. And when you can split it, you see the rainbow or the visual spectrum. When light is out in the world and it's shining onto plants, that energy at different levels and wavelengths of energy can be captured for photosynthesis to occur. If you look at the bottom of this picture, you'll see that the spectrum of light from violet, V, to blue, to green, to yellow, to orange, to red, is represented across different wavelengths. So these different wavelengths have actually different sizes and different pigments that are present in the leaf will be able to absorb those different wavelengths, those different energies of the light. So you can see here where I've circled the green and yellow portion of the visual spectra. There's not a lot of absorption from chlorophyll A or B, and that's because that light in those wavelengths are not absorbed. Instead, they're reflected back to the atmosphere. And that reflection of light in those wavelengths is what gives plants their green color, greenish yellow color. One other thing to note is that the carotenoids, so that's the orange line in the graph, absorbs light in the violet, blue, and a little bit of the green spectrum. Now, carotenoids are other pigments that are present in the plant, but we don't normally see them because they're such a small percentage of pigments. When we do see them is actually about this time of year in where we live in Chicago, because the cold weather causes chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B to break down. And when they break down, they disintegrate. And when they disintegrate, the carotenoids, which are usually orange, yellow, or red in color, become more prominently displayed in the leaves. So we talk about changing the leaf color. That actually happens because all the chlorophyll has disintegrated and those carotenoids are now more present in the leaf's coloring. And that's when we see the leaves turn yellow and orange and red. And then when all the carotenoids have disintegrated, they turn brown and they fall off the tree. Now, chloroplasts are present inside the cells of the leaf. What's so special about chlorophyll that makes it important for photosynthesis? Well, because chlorophyll is a pigment that absorbs the energy from the sun. Additionally, when chlorophyll absorbs light, a large fraction of that light energy is transferred directly to electrons in the chlorophyll molecule itself. And by capturing that energy, you can the leaf and the plant can produce a steady supply of high energy electrons, which is what makes photosynthesis work. Here you see the chloroplast, which contains stacks of thylakoids. So down here you see one thylakoid, and it's stacked up like a big stack of green tiny pancakes. The thylakoids that are all stacked up are called grana or a granum, which is a singular one. Inside this chloroplast, there are many grana. And the pigments of chlorophyll are located inside the thylakoid membrane. Okay? Outside of the chloroplast, but inside of the outside of the thylakoids, but inside of the chloroplast is a fluid-like area called the stroma. And that's where the reactions that are not light sensitive take place. Now, in order to kind of imagine the way that energy moves within the chloroplast, let's think about high energy electrons being similar to hot potatoes from the oven. They're really too difficult to pick up with your bare hands, right? You need some sort of special carrier to move that hot potato or that very high energy substance called an electron, to carry it along to where it's useful, okay? So in our picture here, we have an oven mitt with the letters NADP+, okay? NADP+ has the ability to grasp not only 2 electrons, but also the hydrogen that's associated with them, okay? When it is carrying those electrons plus the hydrogen, we call that carrier molecule with the hydrogen and the electrons NADPH, right? H for electron. And we don't have a plus because those electrons were negatively charged. So when it's holding those electrons, the positive, the plus sign, disappears. Okay? When NADP plus is converted to NADPH, we've trapped the energy of sunlight in this chemical electron carrier. Then when we get somewhere else where we need to be, right, we can drop off those high energy electrons, drop off that hydrogen ion, and use that electricity to do the work of the cell. So NADPH carries all of that high energy substances from the light absorption in chlorophyll to chemical reactions elsewhere in the cell, most generally in the stroma. Okay. So photosynthesis, at its very basic level, it uses the energy of sunlight to convert water and carbon dioxide, both low energy reactants, into high energy sugars and oxygen. The sugar that is most generally made is glucose, and the chemical formula for that is C6H12O6. And we use carbon dioxide here, CO2, 6 molecules of that, plus 6 molecules of water, using the power of light energy, will yield 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen gas. While the equation for photosynthesis looks simple, there are lots of steps to get from reactants to the final products. In fact, there's 2 sets of reactions: photosynthesis, which harnesses light energy, then the light-dependent reactions, and then there's light-independent reactions, things that happen when light isn't necessarily around. Okay? The light-independent reaction or light-dependent reactions require the direct involvement of light and light-absorbing pigments. Okay, so light has to come in through the chloroplast. It has to touch that light energy has to interact with the thylakoid membrane, which contains chlorophyll. And when it does that, we get NADP plus gathering some of that energy using water as a reactant and turning out oxygen as a product. Okay. In the meantime, we're also going to charge up a molecule from ADP to ATP. You can see both of these, both the ADP and the NADPH, carry electron energy into the stroma of the cell, where we have take carbon dioxide and we bind it up to make sugars and other carbohydrates. So the CO2, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, is used in a light-independent reaction using energy stored in ATP and NADPH molecules that are produced in the light-dependent reactions. And then they're able to turn that carbon dioxide into sugar and other carbohydrates. With both light-dependent and light-independent reactions need each other. They do not work without having the other also happening. So while the reactions in the stroma aren't necessarily needed for don't necessarily need light, they do need the ATP and NADPH that are produced in the thylakoid membranes when light is present. We're constantly recycling the ADP into ATP ADP into ATP, and constantly turning NADP plus into NADPH to carry the energy from the thylakoid to the stroma to power those reactions.